Hello, my beautiful PhD friends. So today we're going to talk about how to finish your PhD faster. I've got 7 tips for them, and there's a couple in there that you definitely haven't heard before. Okay, let's take a look. If you're new to this channel, please remember to subscribe and hit that bell notification. I talk about all things PhD, careers, hacks, motivation, tips, advice, all of that sort of stuff. So please subscribe. Okay, let's look at these 7 tips. So I completed my PhD in 3 years, and that was relatively fast. The reason I had so much kind of focus and attention and I was able to do it was because my PhD candidature was classed as an international PhD student thing. So it meant that if I had gone over a day after 3 years, it would have cost me 20,000 Australian dollars in tuition fees for that next year. So that is a massive motivation to get me done within the 3 years. And so have a look in your kind of world. Is there kind of a fine, or is there a reason that is really painful to get you finished? That isn't necessarily the first tip, but just thinking about it, that's what really worked for me. And also it kept my supervisors on board, because I was like, if I go over, you're paying the $20,000. That kept everyone aligned. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is building the right habits. Now, as soon as you sign up for a PhD program, you have to remember this. You're coming off the back of about 4, maybe 4.5, 5 years worth of undergraduate stuff. And you can kind of feel like your ego can feel like you've kind of earned the right to relax a little bit. The beginning of a PhD is not the time to relax. You will compound the pressure if you just don't start building the right habits from day one. And I know that because I was not good at building those habits. For example, I would get in and I would just launch Facebook. That'd be the first thing. Check on Facebook, get a coffee, talk to my mates in the lab, and that was it. That was the beginning of my day. Talk about a rubbish beginning of a day. And so what I recommend you do is look at your day and be like, okay, I don't need to work like super hard and hustle and blah, all that sort of stuff, but I do need to be consistent. So what I recommend is when you first sit down at your desk in the morning is you don't open emails. Most emails, I'll be honest with you, all emails, unless you're like a neurosurgeon or you work in the emergency ward, all emails can be ignored for like 2 or 3 days. I can guarantee you that. If it's important, they'll call you or they'll come and see you. So don't open your emails. They're not important. Don't get on Facebook. Don't open your social media. Build a habit that when you sit down, the first thing you do is you do something important. You plan the day. You look at the experiments you've got to do during the day, or you just head straight to the lab. That, I think, is the only way really to build up momentum for the day. It's so challenging to do that yourself, and you need a lot of kind of persistence and kind of motivation to do it. But willpower is like a muscle. Initially, when you first start doing this, it's going to be a massive pain in the ass, but you'll get there. You'll get there because your willpower will become stronger with time. So morning, afternoon, before you go home, set up habits that get you closer to your goal and do them every single day, no matter what. Set some time aside for checking Facebook in that late afternoon if you must, and emails and that sort of stuff. But really, set up habits and read Atomic Habits if you haven't already. That will set you up for how to build great habits that will get you closer to your goal, which is finishing your PhD quicker. Okay, number 2 is get into the habit of writing. Start writing earlier than you think. And by writing, I just mean every sort of academic writing. I'm not necessarily talking about thesis or literature review. I mean, those are important. But setting time aside for just writing, for going, you know what, I'm going to work on this paper or this proposal, or I am going to work on my literature review, having it structured into your day. And I don't know about you, I need to do something every single day, otherwise I lose motivation. So even if it's half an hour, even if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes of writing, of focused writing, That's what I think you should do. So yeah, start writing earlier. Look at the end goal, which is a thesis, or you can now do PhD by publication by producing 3 to 5, I think, papers, depending on the institution. So you need to just start writing. Have you got a graph? Write about it. Have you got a little bit of experimental work to write up? Write it out. Do whatever you can to just keep that momentum. So write consistently, write early, build that into your habits. That's number 2. Write earlier than you think you should have to. When you're doing a PhD, it can be very challenging to kind of find time just to relax, just to chill out and do nothing. Now, importantly, a PhD is about sustained effort. There is no point going all in an unsustainable way to burn out a year and a half in. You're in this for 3, 4, 5, even up to 8 years. I knew someone who was doing a PhD for 10 years. So you have to make your journey sustainable. So what that looks like is actually taking time off, a full day, at least a week, where you say, I am not going to do this. Now, I know in the States, the culture is absolutely terrible, and that you're expected to be in the lab on the weekends and the blah and the this and the evenings, and just get on board with relaxing. And even if you have to be in the lab, work out a way to sneakily relax if you have to be there physically in person. Get out in nature, walk, sit still, read a book, do something on one full day where you're not thinking about your PhD. I think that is what makes, when you say finish your PhD faster, you think you have to work super hard all the time. But in fact, recharging your energy levels in that one day a week is so important. You'll come back refreshed. Just factor that in. That is one way to actually finish faster, is because when you do work, when you're refreshed, you'll work deeper and longer, and that will help with the speed. There we are. Remember to relax. Okay, number 4 is your student-supervisor relationship is so important. And the way you finish a PhD faster is you get them on board early on. You say, these are my goals. These are the things I've set myself, and I want you to, support me in this way. You need to be very specific. Some supervisors are a massive pain in the ass. I was very fortunate. All of mine were really engaged, but some of them are very hands-off. But you need to let them know what you expect from them from the get-go. It is a relationship. It's not a dictatorship. And I know for some international students that are working in institutions, it can be hard because you feel like the supervisor is the boss or the dictator of the lab. And in some ways, they like to think they are. But unfortunately, they have to realize that they work for you, not the other way around. Being a supervisor is supporting, mentoring people. And so being really upfront with people as soon as you start and you say, this is what I'm going to do. This is how you can support me. And this means I'll be finished within 3 years, or I'll be finished within this deadline. And getting them on board is so important. You can't go in demanding stuff, but you can make them aware. And it's all about communication. That relationship is so important. I've seen so many PhD students take ages and just fail just because that relationship wasn't strong and they've had to move to a different supervisor, and it's just a massive pain. So yes, student-super relationships are so very important. Make sure you cultivate yours in the right way and make it positive, strong, and communicative. That's what you got to do. Okay, number 5, and this one is one that I feel like happens a lot. Now, a PhD, you stay on track. You've got your goal. Now, this is what happens, and this is something that not a lot of people talk about, is I call it paper bait. Paper bait is when someone comes to you with an idea and goes, could you just try this little thing for me? I'll put your name on the paper. And because you're so sort of focused on papers and outputs and, all that for your academic career, you end up doing it. Now, if you do too many of those, you're just going to be completely thrown off course. I saw someone waste 6 months trying to get this thing to work that someone gave them to do, and it didn't work. They wasted 6 months of their PhD because they were they were following this fanciful idea to get a paper that wasn't related at all to their actual PhD thesis or question. Now, paper bait is so attractive because you're like, I'll just do this simple experiment and I'll get my name on a paper. Now, some of them do work out like that, but a lot of them don't. So please, if you're going to finish faster, you have to be really selective about who you actually help with their paper bait. And as soon as someone says to you, like as soon as the words come out of their mouth, as in, I'll put your name on the paper, be suspicious. Be super suspicious and be like, okay, ask questions. What do I need to do? How long will it take? When is the paper being published or written? All of that stuff. And you can say no. You can say, no, I don't have time for that. Saying no to paper bait is one of the most important things you can do to finish your PhD faster. Stay focused. It's not about being rude and saying, no, you're not going to help people with a good idea. You can do some of it. Everyone does. But you can't get swept up into this paper bait treadmill where you're just doing other people's little shitty bits of work for them, and you aren't working on your thesis. You have to focus on you. Saying no is a very important part of staying on track. Okay, number 6 is find a mentor. You need to find an academic mentor that is completely outside of what you're doing. So for example, the university I did my postdoc in had a mentoringship program, which was brilliant. I got paired up with an academic, a professor from a whole different institution, a whole different building, whole different field. And that was great because I was able to go to them with problems, particularly when my supervisor was all demanding and weird and like, oh, just gross. And I would be like, this happened. And they said, well, that's completely inappropriate. And so at least it's those sort of things where you can go, okay, it's not just me. It's an objective viewpoint on my progress. It's an objective viewpoint on my PhD and my career. Now, the biggest thing here is you have to be coachable, right? You can't go into this mentoring kind of relationship and feel like you know it all. You need to be open to criticism, open to how they view your PhD. That is the only real way that a mentoringship relationship is valuable. Being coachable is the biggest thing in this relationship. You're not there to argue with them about one thing or another. You're there to listen, have an objective opinion on your progress and your PhD and your issues that you're having, and listen. Then you can take that, digest it, and act on it as you feel appropriate. But you're not there to argue with them about this, that, or the other. I've really benefited both in my sort of academic career and also in my sort of entrepreneurial journey at the moment from having mentors, and I know it can benefit you too. So yes, you want to finish your PhD faster, getting an objective mentor will absolutely help. And number 7 is communicate with colleagues. When you're communicating, it is an act of getting sort of ideas flowing. It's an act of sharing, of listening, of being pushed, of being questioned, and that really, really helps formulate your ideas. So speak to your colleagues, communicate your results, always put your hand up. If someone's like, oh, we need someone to talk this weekend, or never work on a weekend. But if they're like, we need someone to talk at this particular seminar or event or whatever, put your hand up. Put your hand up, because communication is what drives science forward. It's what helps mold ideas, create new things, and it will really help your PhD, and it will help formulate your ideas faster, which means your PhD will kind of start to look complete and you'll start to put jigsaw pieces together. You may have new collaborations. Watch out for paper bait though. Yes, communication is a vital part of the scientific process, and not enough people do it early on as well. And also communicate between your peers, other PhD students. You don't have to go through academics. You don't have to go through your supervisors. you can speak openly to other PhD students to make your thesis better, to make your PhD better, and then take those ideas that you formulated with your colleagues, your peers, to your supervisor. And it will just make everything sort of move forward quicker, momentum. It's amazing how much energy comes from just speaking out ideas or problems or issues with someone. So yes, find every opportunity you can to communicate, and I know that will help accelerate your PhD and your thinking and your maturity as a scientist. So there we are. There are my 7 tips. Let me know in the comments which ones you would add, and yeah, good luck. Your PhD is such a sort of valuable journey. It is your journey and only yours to make. So enjoy the process. Make sure that you're not just focusing on the bad bits, enjoy the growth that it offers you. And I shall see you in the next video. Let me know in the comments as well, what sort of videos would you like to see me make? What questions do you have? And I will do my best to make them. All right then, see you in the next video.